Dwarf.
Exactly. There's an actor in New York named Meredith, and she was a regular on the Boston Legal. She's perfect for this part. The dwarf did all the talking, and they worked as a team. But they were also a salt and pepper team. The dwarf was Caucasian, and the regular sized girl was black. And she almost never spoke. She never said a word. But when she did, you listened because it was always something very profound. There's a scene in the script where just a street level pimp tries to pick her up, and he runs this game down on her. You can do better than you're doing. You need to be with a man. You don't need to be with a dwarf. If you come with me, I'll split the money with you. And when she finally lets loose on him, I mean, she reads in the riot act using language he probably didn't know what she was saying because she had a tremendous command of the vocabulary, and he didn't understand what she was saying. But basically, she was saying, "You're a buffoon. Look in the mirror," and because he was stereotypical street. He drove a van, and it was called the Ho Hauler. Well, he's serving federal time right now, I think, out on Boulevard. But he would go down, and he absolutely street level. He was an honest to God pimp. He would pimp the girls out, collect the money, and the definition of a pimp in the strictest sense is a man that procures for a woman. Well, that's just about non-existent now. You seldom, if ever, find that. The real pimps today are the madams because they furnish a place to work and they furnish the clientele. So in the strictest sense, the women, the madams now are the background characters. There was one called One Trick Pony. All right. The story behind One Trick Pony, and she is in the very beginning of the film, and she's at the very end of the film. And the way she came up with the name, I think the American Indians, when you would get a name like Dances with Wolves, it was because it was the first thing that a child would see and would recognize. Like if they said Dancing Bear, it would have something to do with the bear. One Trick Pony was a pole dancer. And when she started out, she was what we would call a light hooker. She would turn one trick per night. And the way she would work was, I think she was 20 minutes on the pole, 20 minutes off the pole. And when she finished her shift, she had had a whole night to size up that group and pick the one that was not a vice cop. And so she got the reputation and the name One Trick Pony. So when she would leave the dancing route, the job, she would turn at one trick. That's how she got her name. There was another girl named Chain Link. She had a very unique way. She was in one of the scripts and I cut her out because we ran out of pages. But she would take a John and back him into a chain link fence, and she wore boots with stiletto heels on it. And with the John with his back to the chain link fence, she would put those stiletto heels through the fence and climb the fence and mount the John against the thing. And so she became Chain Link. So all of their names meant something. You just had to know what it was. And bless her heart, I had to cut her out because I ran out of pages. But all of those people that I've cut out will make the DVD. It would be a sacrilege to film it and not have them in there. Boo was a great big black woman, weighed probably 350 pounds, and she would carry, she wore the most outlandish costumes in the world. Do you remember back when in Georgia they had a thing called a chain gang, and they would go out and work on the highways, and they were all prisoners, but they would work on the chain gang. Well, they wore uniforms that were black and white striped, and she was so large that with her what she had done was she had bought tights, but they looked like a chain gang outfit. she wore that and some kind of a little vest, but then on her collar, she had 2 helium-filled condoms, and they were on strings, and that was her advertisement. But you got to remember, it was a different era. Today, that wouldn't fly. But she started out on Stewart Avenue over by a place called Alamo Plaza, and it's still there. It's an excellent place to get shot. But that was Boo, and she just was funny, because when we got busted in that drunken brawl, at that time, the jail for the city of Atlanta was on Decatur Street. So they put us in the wagon and took us to the jail. Well, Sly got down there, of course, and bailed us out. By that time, we owned our own bonding company, which was illegal. Lawyers could not be involved in a bonding company. The rationale was it would give you an unfair advantage over another lawyer. But that didn't bother Sly, it did it anyway. And when we came out of the jail, Boo was literally working in front of the Atlanta City Jail. And that's where Alex hollered at her and said, Boo, you can't be walking up and down out here. And Boo said, oh, it's okay. All God's children got to get laid. That was her retort. But all of those people, they were very colorful. Okay, he was basically a street salesman, and I think that he was from New York. Well, if you've ever been to New York, especially on 8th Avenue, you'll see these guys, and they carry a briefcase. Well, the briefcase on the back of it has legs like this folding table, and they can literally set up shop on a moment's notice, open the case, and what they're doing is they're trying to sell you stuff, and they're constantly looking for cops because none of them have permits. But they're the type of the guys, they are the stereotypical guy that will pull his sleeve up and he's got 15 watches, that type of deal. I think that was this guy's background. And he had retired and moved to a little bit warmer climate. And he said, okay, fine, here's a sex trade industry that's working the streets. For whatever reason, they're out there and they're getting away with it. So he set up his shop to sell to people, the working girls. He sold mouthwash, Listerine, KY jelly, condoms, all of anything that a working girl needed, he had it. And the girls, being creative as they are, they started calling him Mr. Goodyear because he was the rubber man, and that's how his name came